Guallart. Vicente is an architect, urban planner, researcher. He was the chief architect of Barcelona city, set up the Institute of Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, IAC, and also the Valdura Labs. Vicente, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to a very important place. We came down from a tree in order to become humans. In fact, our genetic ancestors are still there. That's why we feel so well in the forest. This is something I learned from my friend Marc Palagi. And yesterday, Cardinal Turkson talked about the myth of the origin of the architecture and how the human, we are connected with the nature. In fact, this is a representation of Vitruvius. Vitruvius was the first architect doing a theory about architecture, was a Roman architect. And then when in the 18th century, they wanted to represent what that meant, they had that image. From Vitruvius to our cities today. This is Barcelona, where I was chief architect. And part of my kind of strange background, being chief architect, also doing education and science, and also being a practitioner architect, brought me to write, to translate the general theory of urbanization. The word urbanization, in fact, was invented in Barcelona by an engineer in 1867. And when I was doing the translation and the introduction, I was trying to understand what means science. In fact, science in the 16th century with Copernicus and so on was more about physics, astronomy, etc. And in fact, Galileo Galilei was another very important person also connected with this environment. And somehow this is what science was first about mathematics, Newton, etc., until the moment that science became more things. In fact, yesterday we were talking, several speakers were talking about nature, social inequality, and urbanization. And what is interesting to discover is that in the middle of 19th century, Darwin wrote on Origin of Species, Marx published The Capital, and Cerdà wrote the theory. But, you know, Haeckel coined the word ecology. That means that the word ecology and the word urbanization were coined with 1 year of difference. There was a moment in the 19th century with the first industrial revolution where we wanted to do science of everything. And I think that this is something yesterday we learned from the scientifics, from John, from several presentations, and this is something that we forgot. We are architects and planners, we are more in the selling mode, trying to sell projects and not trying to make science. We, more than plans, we need strong ideas that many people can embrace and working together in order to develop this idea. In fact, Cerdà did that plan and was doing science about mobility in the middle of 19th century. And at the same time he was doing science, also he was a practitioner. And the interesting thing is that after a big crisis, two big crises, World War I and Spanish flu, was founded Bauhaus. Yesterday, the president, Ursula von der Leyen, was talking about the Bauhaus, the new European Bauhaus. When I first heard about the new European Bauhaus, I remember also of this, because this was also done in the Bauhaus. So don't forget that in the Bauhaus and in that time, was planned a new model for the urbanization about urban segregation, concrete structures, and private cars. Now we want to ride out of it. So there was not an evil mind behind this thing that now we think that is destroying our planet. It was done with good intentions. But the truth is that some years later, the ideas are others. They did a Charter of Athens that again was not someone selling something, was defining science to create and many people could embrace. And the first impact about the growing cities was the centralized city model, like in Moscow, Beijing, Paris, Madrid, and many others. And now in Barcelona, we start to work on the distributed city that, in fact, John was talking about. The idea is that you cannot make a cute city grow in a radial way. In the moment a system is so big that you cannot manage, you need to think the system like a brain that is composed by neurons, that one neuron doesn't make anything, millions of neurons, they create intelligence. And this is what the future of cities should look like. Not working in Mumbai as something, but Mumbai as a network of many things. In fact, we could think that instead to talk the planet as a city, we could talk that the planet has 10 billion cities, because the city of everyone starts in their home. And this is the other way around, is to start to see things bottom up. Yeah, yesterday we saw fantastic diagrams from Jeffrey, and I promised him to show some of the diagrams looking how distributed is the city. In the left is the markets in Barcelona, that this is the local scale of facilities. But if you see the global scale, the city scale facilities, Barcelona is asymmetrical. So it looks that it can look like a fractal structure, but it's not, because the distribution of the system is not working well. Right now, we have another big challenges, climate change, COVID, and so on. And then we need to define a new paradigm. Again, this time, we should try not to be a bill. We should try to create something that connects us back to the nature. And that's why we are writing the Green Book of Biocities with the European Forest Institute. We are trying to show how cities could absorb CO2, produce their own food, create relationships in the same way that forests are doing. With my friend and partner, Daniel Ibanez, that is here, we won the competition to do, because we are also practitioners, the tallest timber building in Barcelona. But the most important thing will happen in the rooftop, because we are going to produce food and energy inside the building. In fact, yesterday, Francesca was talking about the problem, about the poverty related with the food, the problem with the wars and so on. We have the solution. The solution is empower the cities and empower the communities, not thinking that sending containers around the world is the solution anymore. This was from the 20th century industrialized capitalism. Maybe we can follow a new kind of green capitalist base in empowering the buildings, empowering the cities, empowering the community. Yesterday, we were talking a lot about Africa. And you know, Africa is developed like a road. In many cases, Africa is developed without proper urbanization. There is a road, and then the answer is doing kind of linear cities. And also, you know, in Africa, that is an incredible place. They are starting to use the thing that we want to abandon, starting to use concrete for their own structures. So I had the opportunity to be invited by some nuns from the order that was founded by Joseph de Magnanet. So we are happy that also some very smart people that are doing education all over the world invite us to go there. And then we were discussing with the local people here, because they wanted to use concrete. They say, no, we want to build concrete. We are afraid about timber. And it was a very interesting discussion. Me coming from a place that we don't have too much timber, trying to say, you have the timber, you can be the leaders of your destiny. And then, well, at the end, they were super happy to be the building. I went to see the forest. So for me, doing architecture is like learning about the life and learning. It's a process of learning. And then what we do there is learning from them and trying also to apply their ideas to our continent. So at the end, we are working with timber in this project. And this is the school, will be the first timber done in Cameroon. This is in Yaoundé. But connected also with something that John was talking about, you know, yesterday also we were talking about Latin America and some question on how to build when you are in a forest. If we want to follow the rules of nature, we need to look for other geometries. And this is what Mandelbrot was doing when he was talking about the fractals and about some systems that are not anymore the Euclidean approach about using the geometry with hierarchy. We like cities without one center, and then fractal geometry can be an answer for that. So that's why we developed this project using a linear branch city. creating communities, promoting the connection of the nature, doing a multi-scalar approach with different units and different, I would say, centralities. The first building will be a biofactory. We will start empowering the people, creating the conditions in order that they build the city by themselves with the materials that they have themselves. And then this is the project that we did and we want to develop. We want to understand how Africa, Indonesia, and other places can make cities that are made by themselves, follow using their own materials, rethinking how globalization is happening, producing their own energy, obviously. And in order to do this, we need to use science. As I said before, working as chief architect of Barcelona, I wanted to describe, a doctor in Rome, in Addis Abeba, and in Barcelona, if they describe the anatomy of a human body, will say exactly the same. But one architect in Rome, Addis Abeba, and Barcelona talking about cities will explain in a very different way how many parts has a city, how many infrastructures, and so on. So that's why we were working at IAC in our institute in order to have an holistic, that is another word that yesterday was saying, holistic approach about how to be able to describe any city in any moment of in their development, and this is the answer. And the last thing I would like to say is I am a proud contributor and co-writer of this charter that has been promoted by and developed by the Bauhaus Earth. As I say before, we need to have strong ideas that many people can embrace, and we need to work together in order to do what it was done 100 years ago. 100 years ago, these Bauhaus were not only listening to the people or looking to small things, they were doing very strong things. They were changing the planet. I admire what John say. He say, we are going to change the planet by constructing. And that's incredible because everyone say we should not build anything anymore while we are in a fast urbanization process. So we need very strong ideas that should change the rules, how we build the world using science. Thank you.